Hello! So today I'm going to be talking about Stella Maris by Cormac McCarthy. Stella Maris is the companion novel to The Passenger, which I reviewed late last year. In The Passenger, we followed a character called Bobby Western, and in Stella Maris, we follow his sister, Alicia Western. In The Passenger, Bobby's story is broken up with interludes from Alicia's hallucinations and conversations with a character called the Kid. We learn early on in The Passenger that Alicia has in fact killed herself. We also learn in The Passenger that Bobby and Alicia's relationship might have been something a little bit more than just sibling love. In fact, the question on whether Alicia's and Bobby's relationship was more than just sibling love was one of the big questions left open in The Passenger, and I can confirm that yes, this novel does give an answer to that question. In fact, it's probably the only question that was left open in The Passenger that is given a concrete answer in this novel. Set in 1972, the novel takes place in a psychiatric facility called Stella Maris. The novel covers 7 manuscripts/recordings of Alicia's conversations with her psychiatrist. And this book is entirely dialogue. No he says, she says, just line with some full stops. I listened to this novel on audiobook, and as it is just dialogue, what I listened to, in essence, was a radio play with some fantastic voice acting. This novel consists mainly of philosophical ponderings, as the whole novel is just Alicia having a conversation with her psychiatrist, and to an extent feels like McCarthy having a conversation with himself on his own worldviews. I found myself pondering whilst listening to this one whether novels are just the philosophies of the writer told through the lens of the character, which in essence and their rawest form they are. But it was evident with this novel that the character and our connection to character was secondary compared to the philosophical ideas the character was in fact presenting to us, the reader. A little bit more info on Alicia is the fact that she was a child prodigy and she is a maths genius, but she is a realist, which makes her philosophical views somewhat pessimistic. The conversations Alicia has with her psychiatrist throughout this novel are incredibly engaging and incredibly dynamic. We have 2 very smart people talking about life, death, and love. I mean, the psychiatrist very quickly learns that he is outmatched intellectually when it comes to Alicia, but he very much does a good job in holding his own. There are too many excellent sections for me to kind of cite them all, which is why I will be going back for a reread with this one, but I do remember really enjoying the idea on how there isn't a metric to measure intelligence when it comes to artists. Alicia is talking about the idea that how we measure intellect normally comes down to either English or maths, and there is always a mathematical component. How when it comes to artists, you could have a genius musician, but on paper, according to the way society rates intellect, would appear to be about as useful or as intelligent as a chocolate teapot. And I found that fascinating because it is something that I've never really thought about before. Stella Maris is about half the size of The Passenger, but even so, it was still packed full of ideas and thoughts and sentences that just made me stop and think. I cannot tell you the amount of times where I had to pause the audiobook, get out my notes app, and just write something down, because I had never really thought about the world in that way before. And that is where this novel is at its absolute strongest. Now, I'm about to lightly step into some spoiler territory. However, I truly believe that you can't really spoil either of these 2 novels, The Passenger or Stella Maris, because there is no real plot, no story. It's mainly just dialogue and conversations about life and death. But that being said, some of the things I'm going to talk about could spoil your enjoyment. So, I mean, I would say now's a good point, if you don't want to know anything, to switch off and come back to this after you've read both novels. So something we learn in this novel that we did not know in The Passenger is the fact that Bobby is in a coma from a race car accident. He's in Italy and he's in a coma, and they have asked Alicia if she will switch off the machine, which she refuses to do. She then leaves Bobby in Italy in the coma to come back to the United States, where she then checks herself in to Stella Maris. This is a really important detail because it left me thinking about how tragic it is that Bobby could have woken up, come back to America to then find out his sister was dead, and that in fact her killing herself is a direct result of her believing that Bobby was never going to wake up from the coma. And that is a kind of deep tragedy that is rooted, or that this novel brings light to, and something that was kind of left open in the first one. I found that gave me a kind of clarity to Alicia's mindset, and also how that ties in with Bobby's journey after he's learnt about her death. So those things just become a little better connected in the tragedy of their two lives. As mentioned earlier, this novel explores something that was kind of left very open in The Passenger, and that's the idea of what was the real relationship between Alicia and Bobby. There's a lot of ancestral rumours going around in the first novel, and this novel does a really great job at kind of giving us clarity, especially from Alicia's perspective, on how she felt about Bobby, the love she felt towards him, and how she couldn't explain it. There was no explaining it. It was just the way she felt. And yet again, this gives us a much more concrete idea into her mindset and why she might have ended up doing what she did. However, there are loads of threads that were presented in The Passenger that are still left very firmly open after finishing this novel. One of the ones that I had was the kind of meaning behind the kid's conversation with Bobby at the end of The Passenger. Now, the kid is very much Alicia's hallucinatory friend, figure, acquaintance, the person she has conversations with, and I was hoping maybe there might be a bit more grounding or something presented to us into why that exists or why that happened at the end of the first novel. And it doesn't, and that's kind of fine, because maybe that's just something for me to ponder and think about and then try and figure out when I revisit both of these novels in the future at some point. So let's do a little roundup of the things that I liked, loved, and the things maybe that I didn't love so much. The writing is absolutely spectacular. I've said it so many times before and I'll keep repeating it. Cormac McCarthy's writing and prose is absolutely brilliant. It just flows so beautifully well. He is a very, very smart man, and I just love getting lost in the language of his writing. The philosophy within the pages is absolutely brilliant, and the pacing is just top notch. I flew through this novel, and it begs to be read or reread or listened to again. My criticism of the first book, The Passenger, was that I love the conversations in it, I love the characters, I love the ideas that it proposed and everything it was thinking about in general. However, I would have liked all of that sort of wrapped up in something with a little bit more story. Now, I'm absolutely fine. Stella Maris is obviously half the size, and it is just a conversation with her and her psychiatrist, and I'm fine with that story-wise, not really pushing that much further. However, I did find myself wanting to be able to connect to Alicia a little bit more, a few more stories about her upbringing, a few more moments to kind of give me a better insight into her personality. Now, this novel very much does do that, but only from a kind of philosophical point of view. I am only really learning about her through how she views the world, and I just wanted something a little bit more human at times. Now, I know you can say there is nothing more human than philosophy and the ideas of life and death, and I totally get that, but I don't know, there was something in the kind of connection that I was left with that I just felt longing a little bit, like I just wanted a little bit more. If the novel had been a little bit longer and given me a little bit more, then maybe the impact emotionally would have hit a little bit harder. But as said, this novel really isn't about that. It isn't about story. It isn't about character. It's about Cormac McCarthy having a conversation with his readers about his views on life and the world and death. But the reason I mention that as a slight negative is it does mean, just like The Passenger, that this novel will not be for everyone. So I think it's good for you to know that going in. I'm going to give this book the exact same rating I gave The Passenger, 4 stars out of 5. I thought it was excellent, and you never know, the more I think about it and the more I ponder the novel, it may turn into a 5-star, but my initial reaction at the moment, on only having read The Passenger once and Stella Maris once, is that it is excellent but not outstanding. I will be rereading both these novels at some point in the future. They are absolutely jam-packed with things that I can't possibly hope to comprehend at my current state of being, I think. And the older I get, I think both these novels will grow with me and I will find new things within them as I get older. They beg to be reread. They are just jam-packed with so much philosophy, so many things to think about, that yeah, they require a reread. And there you go, that was my thoughts and feelings on Stella Maris by Cormac McCarthy. As said, both these books are very dense philosophically, and there are many things that I haven't even scratched the surface of with this review, because I like to keep my reviews sort of shortish and not ramble on for ages. But they are kind of books where I could ramble on for 30 minutes, talking about the themes within them and just little ideas within sentences. That's the kind of books that they are. But anyway, I hope this review has been helpful in some way. Please hit the old thumbs up or subscribe if you've liked it, and yeah, I'll see you all on the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone.